Hi everybody, my name is Sapphire Toth, and I am a music composition major at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. Thank you so much for tuning in to Chatting with Creators. It has been an amazing experience to see so many people starting to fall in love with the series as much as I love to make it. Please be sure to follow me on all social media and subscribe on YouTube so that you can receive all the updates possible about people that I'm interviewing and be informed when new episodes come out. Now to the interview with Alessandro. I'm sure you're going to love hearing him talk about his career in Hollywood as a composer and compositional assistant on major films and video games.
Hello!
Hey.
You're looking snazzy today. Thanks for joining me.
Well, I had to find a way to hide the crazy hair from not being able to go get a haircut.
I have just embraced it. I see you're working on something in the back.
Yes, that's a library track for an Underwater Worlds album.
Nice.
That's the last track I have to do for that album.
That is so cool. You're wrapping up a lot of projects because I saw you finished up all your cues for the Netflix series you're working on, right?
Yeah.
Breeze Bake Off Challenge?
It's not, yeah, it's not on Netflix yet, but we'll see where it goes. Yeah, I wrapped up that feature. It's not fully, they're still in post sound.
Mm-hmm.
But the music's done. I have to work on the soundtrack album. I signed on for 4 tracks of the library because I can't do a whole album by myself right now. It's just no time, and I'm doing a lot of assisting stuff for other composers remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Luckily, there's some of that. And then I'm starting another feature now. Well, I'm not going to start it now, but I've got a rough cut of a horror film.
I have a terrible stomach for horror.
I scored a horror before, and I did some weird stuff. I wrote the whole score without any third-party sounds. I went to Home Depot and I bought trash can and these pipes and rods and all kinds of. I bought a metal sheet. I didn't know what it was, and I did all these things like I shook it and banged the trash can and hit it against stuff and built all these custom instruments and played a lot of guitar and bowed the guitar, and I did all these things for a horror, because the problem with horror is that everybody has access to the same third party, to all the same sample libraries, so everything will end up sounding, unless you have live players, and with low budget horror there's usually no budget for live players, so you have to get creative. I played a lot of guitar on that. Just use a lot of special effects.
I've learned anything from percussionists, it's that everything's an instrument.
Yes, I hit the wall and then pitched it down. I did all kinds of weird stuff, yeah.
Gotcha. Do you have a favorite genre that you like to write for?
I wouldn't call any one thing specific favorite. I do love fantasy, particularly for video games. I like fantasy. For film, it's, I like drama. I like action stuff, but a lot of the older composers tell me it's like a phase,
A phase?
Yeah, and then eventually you'll just get sick of it. But I think that's with everything.
Mm-hmm.
If you get too pigeonholed into one thing. When I did this comedy feature that you mentioned, Breeze Bake Off Challenge, I grew a lot from that. I really enjoyed writing this, but I couldn't do like 3 comedy features in a row or something. I would go nuts.
Yeah.
In 10 seconds, there's like this much music. And, I've literally spent 2-3 hours and it wasn't even 20 seconds yet. It was.
You mentioned that you've worked on films and video games. What would you say are the biggest differences in writing for one or the other?
The big difference is that in film you have different stages. You have pre-production, production, post-production, and then in post-productions where you have music, and by the time they get to music the whole thing's kind of done, more or less. And now like the big pressure's on you because the composer is like the last big main thing in a film that's like very substantial to it's the heart of the whole film. It's like, and it's the last step. Well, like mixing, I guess it's the very, very last step, but there's a lot of pressure. The time crunches are usually uh, shorter, and the dates are usually more fixed. With games, it's all just production. Like everybody, they're constantly working on the game and the music and the sound and the art. Like everything is happening at the same time. It's not one fixed way. Sometimes they'll wait and then they'll suddenly say, "Can we get like 20 minutes of music in 2 weeks?" Or you send a little bit and then they work on it, implement it in the game, and you don't hear from them for a couple of weeks. And then you send some more and then they work on it and then you don't hear from them for a few weeks. Then suddenly they're like, "Can you give us 15 minutes of music in like a week?"
Oh
And then, yeah,
gosh.
yeah, it's all over the map. Like one time, Chris, who I work for, had to do like 20 minutes of music in 5 days and have it recorded live.
Geez, what sleep?
Yeah, but like that's the thing, right? He did that and then it was fine.
What does being a composer's assistant entail? Do you help with orchestration or anything? Are you just kind of helping them with the stuff like getting the scores like you were talking about? What really goes into that job?
Everything.
Oh boy.
You're it's kind of divided into four things that you could be doing as an assistant. You could be the runner, which is you're just like running errands. You could be the administrative person, which is everything administrative, whether it's like writing someone a bio or uh, managing emails, the cue sheets, essentially being like a secretary.
Mhm.
Uh, making cue lists and spreadsheets and keeping track of all the cues when you're on a project, keeping track of emails when there's collaborations, with the team of people and composers. That's the admin stuff. Then there's the tech, which is the most admin and tech are the most common. Tech means like everything that's not actually writing or working on the music, but like balancing stems, cleaning up the MIDI when it's messy for the orchestrators, exporting the MIDI, setting up Pro Tools sessions for recording and for mixing. Oh, building templates. That was actually one of my
Mhm.
first assistant tasks. You mentioned orchestration. Before orchestration, I would say score prep. And if you, for those who see this at any point and are aspiring to be assistants, it's very unlikely that you'll probably get to assist a game composer. I got very lucky, especially that I get to also write music for one. But most of the time, a game composer will probably just call you for stems because it's a pain in the butt. It's just like after you've been doing this for 10 years, 20 years to just like bounce and then like just get somebody else to do it. So and maybe building a template. So I consider myself very blessed that I get to work for a game composer. But again, it's not consistent, right? It's not like every week I might not hear from him for weeks or a month or more than a month. Uh, but I still get the privilege of working with him on music. And then Pinar, I worked exclusively as a tech for a long time, and now it's breaks out over time. But I'm very grateful for that because by being a tech for her, I got all these skills that I wouldn't have got any other way, and then I'm able to take those tech skills to other composers who I want to work for or bring them into my own studio.
What's the
So
craziest thing you've ever been asked to do?
uh, I don't know if I can narrow it down to one thing. I mean, working for Pinar is amazing because it's probably the widest skill set. I've done everything from like running around to buy stuff to like
Mhm.
figuring out how to do, I had to video edit things for one of her live interviews. So I was like in
Wow.
iMovie cutting things up. I built so many spreadsheets. I mean, Captain Marvel was like Google Docs galore. I mean, it was
Oh, I bet.
and I built these cool Google Docs, and I actually use, and I those skills I was able to take to other places.
So, what do your days look like balancing all of your work on your own films where you're composing and assisting these various other composers?
I
How
do
do you
get,
manage it all?
yeah, people ask that question to me and they don't know how, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know how. I never got a single assistant position under one composer that I worked for full time.
Hmm.
I was essentially, in the same way you're a freelance composer for film and TV, I've been a freelance assistant as well. To be honest, like I said earlier, I'm very grateful for it because I've exercised all these different muscles. By this point, my skill set was like this wide that what I have to offer them is like that much more. Uh, so, but balancing the time, yeah, it's for some reason, I don't know how, but in over 3 years, about 3 years, there have been overlaps and stuff, but for some reason, it's never been to the point where I can't handle it. And it's just been like this, I don't know, the fate of the universe or something, that there's never been a situation where two of the composers were working on something that's dire that happened at the same time that I couldn't.
Oh,
Uh,
knock on wood, it's going to happen tomorrow now.
uh, I mean, everybody has been somewhat adjustable on something or the other. Communication, the biggest skill that you need for being in my situation is communication. You have to be really open and honest and be willing to take no for an answer. Okay, I will find somebody else. Because if you try and, like, slip on information or try and not tell them something, and you're doing something else and they're not aware that you're also doing that, and they need you on this, they they might just not call you again. That's the common thing in the entertainment business and the composer world, is like they might say, we can't work anymore, or you just might not hear from them again. It'll rarely be like people getting mad or whatever, but you should communicate. Like, look, this composer's got this big project. I'm gonna need like 2-3 weeks. It's gonna be pretty tight for me, but I can do this for you in spare time.
So, how does one get a composer's assistant job? For myself, whenever I'm looking for different gigs to do, mostly of what I see online is composer internships that various companies have up, but not necessarily anything under an assistantship. I've maybe seen an online application for a composer's assistant once.
The answer is there's no one way. It's all the ways. Emails, events, more events. Uh, I'm trying to think. Referrals after you've got one. Uh, you collaborate, and now you're in touch with a new person, and so you tell them. So after you've gotten a few, the web develops. Referrals are huge, and the reason referrals are huge is that it's a very intimate position, and you're giving up responsibility. You're trusting another person with something. There's always going to be somebody that can do the job. So if somebody gives a direct referral, that's huge, because somebody they trust has told you, like, oh, check this person out, and that's really big for them. Meeting people in person is really big. Or if you meet them in person, say hi and then send them an email. That kind of thing is great too, because now they can make the connection. The secret is the consistency and reaching out a lot. You can't reach out to 4 people and expect something to happen. You're gonna have to do a lot of all the different methods, not just one. You definitely have to get out of the house. The composer community is really small. Everybody knows everybody.
How would you describe your own creative process? Do you start with improv? Do you go straight to the DAW? What does it look like when you are getting to work?
All of them. It just depends. Uh, sometimes it's not even at the studio. I remember on the Bake Off movie, I was like, for a whole week, you should have seen my face. I was completely stuck. And I said, I don't know how I'm going to score this movie. I can't score this movie. That was my thought. And I just could not think of anything. And I was just walking around like this, like a zombie. And suddenly, one morning, my eyes opened like that. And I shot up from the bed and I ran to the studio. And I like hit the recorder on my phone, and for 20 minutes I was like there. I was hearing a melody and I was like playing it on the guitar, and then I was like talking and then talking to myself about the character, and I was like, she's doing this and this is the kind of person she is, and like while playing it at the same time on the guitar and like really trying to get those notes, and I got them. And then finally I got the melody. That was the main character's theme, Bree's theme. And then after I got the melody, I put it on the piano in the DAW, and then I put the harmony, which literally took a whole day. It took me a whole day to like figure out what chords to put over this melody. I think it took me 2 days actually. I was like, chord, and then I had theme. And then I expanded it, like orchestrated the piano sketch, and then after you start orchestrating the piano sketch, then you put in like cool things. And then I used a reference track that she had from another composer on some big movie or show, and I listened to the colors, like
Mhm.
the orchestration and the colors and the mix, and I kind of mimicked those and gave it my own thing. But the melody wasn't, and harmony weren't copied at all. It was just the texture, and so that was a cool, different way where it was me sleeping and then I woke up and it just came. But it was like a whole week or more of just sitting there going, I can't do this.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I
Of
just
course.
realized it's been over an hour and it felt more like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's great talking to you. Thank you for having me on. Good luck to everybody who hope it helps a little bit.